My name is Veronica Hale. I'm 34 years old, and I work as a financial analyst in downtown Seattle. Most nights I leave the office when the cleaners are already vacuuming the hallways. Tonight is no exception, only instead of collapsing in bed, I'm back at my tiny one-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill, hunched over the glow of my laptop. Before I dive in, let me pause for a second. If you've ever felt trapped by family obligations, if you've ever given until it hurt, then this story might feel uncomfortably familiar. Please like, subscribe, and share this channel, because what I'm about to tell you is not just my story, it's a warning and maybe a lifeline for someone else out there. The cursor blinks on yet another spreadsheet. Numbers swim before my eyes, blurring into each other after 14 hours at the office. The Henderson portfolio is due tomorrow morning, and my boss trusts me to get it perfect. That's why my dining table has turned into a battlefield of reports, highlighters, and a half-empty mug of cold coffee. The room is so quiet I can hear the hum of the old refrigerator in the kitchen. I rub my temples, fighting the throb that settled at the base of my skull. "Focus, Veronica," I whisper to myself. Just a few more cells to double-check, then maybe a couple hours of sleep before sunrise. That's when my phone buzzes. The name lighting up the screen makes me smile despite the exhaustion. Samantha, my little sister. 28, smart, ambitious, supposedly drowning in graduate school assignments in Portland. I imagine she's calling to vent about her thesis or to plan another weekend visit I probably won't have time for. "Hey, Sam," I answer, my voice warm but rough from fatigue. But instead of her voice, I hear clinking glasses. Laughter, music, the unmistakable swell of a party on the other end. I frown. "Hello? Sam? Can you hear me?" The noise continues, muffled but lively, like someone pressed a phone against a table while dancing. I almost hang up, probably a butt dial, when my name slices through the chatter. "Can you believe Veronica still thinks she's helping us?" Samantha's voice, clear and sharp. My grip tightens around the phone. My stomach knots. "She's basically an ATM with a pulse," she continues, laughing. Another voice joins in, slurred with alcohol. My younger brother, Ethan. "She owes us. What else is she gonna spend her money on? No husband? No kids? Might as well be useful." And then, my mother. Linda's laughter is crueler than anything I've ever heard from her. "We should tell her the rent went up again. That'll cover utilities and maybe a spa day for me." The words pierce deeper than any insult a stranger could throw at me. This is my family. My mother, who I've paid nearly $1,500 in rent for every month. My sister, who hugged me last week in tears when I covered her emergency textbook costs. My brother, whose tuition shortfall I bailed out more than once. My throat closes. I can't move. I can't breathe. All I can do is listen as they laugh, plan, and strip me down to nothing more than a bank account with a heartbeat. "She always folds," Samantha says casually, her tone dripping with certainty. "It's so easy." A tear slides down my cheek, landing on the spreadsheet in front of me. The ink smudges, the numbers blur further. I press the phone tighter to my ear, though every word feels like a knife. For years, I've justified the sacrifices. The canceled vacation to San Diego when Ethan's tuition came up short. The dental procedure I postponed twice because Samantha's car repairs couldn't wait. The second job bartending weekends when Mom swore she couldn't afford her medical bills. 5 years of saying yes. 5 years of telling myself that family comes first. But as their laughter rattles through the speaker, something cracks. I end the call with deliberate care, setting the phone down as if it might shatter under the weight of my betrayal. The silence in my apartment feels heavier than ever. My reflection stares back at me from the black laptop screen. Tired eyes, hollow cheeks, and behind them, a rising clarity. I whisper to the empty room, "How could I have missed it for so long?" The refrigerator hums in response, indifferent. My heart beats fast, but steadier with each breath. Beneath the hurt, beneath the tears, something else stirs. Resolve. I pick up my phone again, thumbs steady now. I type, "Hey, I think the call glitched. Weird signal. Everything okay?" The reply comes quick, syrup sweet. "All good? Just having dinner with Mom and Ethan. Talk tomorrow." No mention of a party, no trace of the cruelty I just heard. Another lie, polished and easy. I close my laptop, the Henderson portfolio forgotten. Instead, I open a new spreadsheet and type 2 words in bold at the top: exit strategy. The words stare back at me, terrifying and liberating. For the first time in years, I'm not thinking about how to save them. I'm thinking about how to save myself. The words exit strategy blinked back at me from the top of a blank spreadsheet. 2 simple words, but they carried the weight of everything I had ignored for years. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing the heel of my palm against my chest, trying to ease the tight ache there. For a moment, I just stared at the screen, listening to the faint hum of traffic outside my apartment window. Seattle never truly slept, though right now it felt like I was the only person awake. The rest of the city belonged to couples curled up in bed, children dreaming of field trips, strangers riding the last bus home. And me? I belonged to this moment. One breath past heartbreak, one keystroke away from a plan. I started with dates. Every time Mom had called with a sudden emergency, every time Samantha swore she couldn't make rent on her student apartment, every time Ethan sent a desperate text about tuition, I pulled open my bank app, scrolling through years of transactions, rent transfers, tuition payments, loans that never came back. Row by row, I entered the numbers. $1,450 here, $600 there, $2,300 when Ethan's scholarship fell through. The totals rose like a tide, threatening to drown me all over again. My throat burned. I whispered into the silence, "That's a down payment on a house. That's retirement. That's my life." The cursor blinked, waiting. I forced myself to keep typing, adding notes in the next column. Mom's back injury, medical bills, Sam's car repairs, Ethan's textbooks. At first, the notes softened the sting, reminders that I hadn't been reckless, I had been generous. But then memory cut through. Mom showing up to dinner 2 days after those supposed medical tests, her hair freshly colored. Samantha's weekend trip to Cabo, poolside cocktail in hand. Ethan's Instagram photo of a new gaming system. Study break vibes scrawled across the caption. The lies were right there, overlapping perfectly with my sacrifices. I scrolled back to the top of the spreadsheet and added a third column, reality. I hesitated, then typed salon visit, beach vacation, gaming console. My fingers trembled as I filled it in, line after line. By the time I reached the bottom, the screen looked like a courtroom exhibit, my generosity cross-examined by evidence I could no longer ignore. A text notification flashed across my phone. "Love you, sis. Don't work too hard." Samantha, probably sending it from whatever party she hadn't admitted to. My thumb hovered over the reply button, then I set the phone face down. For years, those words, "Love you, sis," had been enough to keep me pliant. But now they read like a line rehearsed for a performance. I saved the spreadsheet, closed my laptop, and sat in the dark. My hands were steady, but my chest ached as if a fault line had cracked open. "Exit strategy," I whispered again. The words didn't feel terrifying anymore. They felt necessary. For the first time in 5 years, the plan wasn't about how to patch their lives together. It was about building my own. And this was only the beginning. The spreadsheet glared at me long after midnight, rows of betrayal stacked in neat columns. By the time dawn bled across the blinds, I knew I couldn't do this alone. Numbers were my territory, but this wasn't just about math anymore. This was fraud. The next afternoon, after surviving another grueling meeting at the firm, I sent a short message. "Coffee? Need your eyes on something important." That's how I ended up at a corner table in a cafe downtown, the kind of place where the hiss of the espresso machine covered private conversations. Across from me sat Michael Torres, my colleague in the accounting department. Mid-30s, sharp mind, dry humor. He had once confided that his parents forged his signature to remortgage their home. If anyone could understand the kind of betrayal I was facing, it was him. He slid into the chair opposite me, loosening his tie. "You look like hell, Hale." I let out a humorless laugh. "Feels accurate." Michael took a sip of his Americano, eyes narrowing when he noticed the folder I'd brought. That doesn't look like weekend reading. It isn't. My hands trembled as I pushed the papers toward him, printouts of bank statements, screenshots of suspicious charges, copies of messages from my family. I need you to tell me if I'm losing my mind, or if my own mother has been robbing me. He flipped through the first few pages, his brow furrowing deeper with each line. Silence stretched between us until he set the folder down and exhaled slowly. You're not crazy. This is calculated. I swallowed hard. I thought I was helping them, rent, tuition, car repairs, but the amounts don't line up, and then… My voice cracked. I forced the words out. Last night I heard them laughing about it, calling me an ATM with a pulse. Michael's jaw tightened. I've been there. It's brutal when the people who are supposed to protect you turn into predators. He tapped the papers. And this? This isn't just manipulation. Look here. He pulled out one statement and circled an account I hadn't noticed. This credit card? It's in your name, but the mailing address isn't yours. I blinked. What? It's an address in Spokane. You ever live there? During college, I whispered. I haven't used that address in over a decade. Exactly. Someone opened this account using your old info. And judging by these charges, Palm Springs Resort, luxury spa treatments, high-end clothing, your mom's fingerprints are all over it. The cafe noise faded. All I could hear was the rush of blood in my ears. My chest hollowed out as if the air had been sucked from the room. She stole my identity? Michael nodded grimly. It's identity theft, Veronica. Classic. And this line… He pointed to a bank's security alert. Looks like someone, probably Samantha, tried to access your savings account last December. They failed, but the attempt is logged. I pressed my palm to my forehead, trying to steady myself. I kept telling myself I was paranoid, that they just needed help. But this is criminal, Michael said firmly. He leaned in, lowering his voice. You need to protect yourself. Freeze your credit. Change your accounts. And most of all, stop giving them another cent. They're not going to stop as long as you keep feeding the beast. Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them back. I don't know if I can confront them. You don't have to, not yet. First, you build your case. Think of it like preparing an audit. You've got the start right here. He tapped the folder. Now you just need to finish it. I studied him for a long moment, grateful in a way words couldn't capture. For years I'd been carrying this weight alone, believing family obligations were mine to shoulder. Now someone else finally saw the truth and refused to let me downplay it. Thank you, I whispered. Michael's expression softened. One step at a time, Hale. You're smarter than they realize, and when the time comes, you'll know exactly what to do. As I gathered my papers, a strange calm settled over me. The fear was still there, but it was tempered now by something stronger. Clarity. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore, it was about justice. And I was done being their silent victim. The folder Michael handed back felt heavier than when I'd first brought it to him. His words echoed in my head all night. This isn't just manipulation, it's criminal. By morning, I knew I couldn't delay. If my own mother had used my name to open a credit card, I needed proof. Not suspicions, not spreadsheets, but legal documentation that no one could twist. I called my bank's fraud department from my office break room. My hands shook as I gave my social security number, answered security questions, confirmed my addresses. The woman on the line, calm and professional, typed notes as I spoke. There is a credit account in Spokane, she said finally. Opened 6 years ago, with your information. It is currently active. Her voice was matter-of-fact, but the words hit me like a blow. 6 years. That was almost the entire length of my so-called sacrifices. That's not mine, I whispered. I never opened it. We'll mark it as identity theft, she assured me. You'll receive a formal letter in the mail within 7 business days. It will outline disputed charges and steps to secure your credit. I recommend freezing your credit reports immediately. I scribbled every word down, pressing the pen so hard it nearly tore the page. Please send everything you can. I need documentation." When I hung up, I stared at the notes in my notebook until the lines blurred. Identity theft. Not just betrayal. Not just lies whispered behind my back. A crime, stamped with my name. My phone buzzed with a new text from Samantha. "Rent's due soon, right? Don't forget." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my email. The bank's confirmation was already in my inbox, a digital copy of what would arrive in the mail. Black and white, official, undeniable. Michael had been right. This wasn't paranoia. I leaned back in my chair, breath unsteady but strangely lighter. For the first time in years, I had more than guilt or suspicion. I had evidence, and evidence changed everything. The bank's email sat open on my laptop, its crisp black letters still burning in my mind. Fraud, identity theft, the kind of words that could topple careers and ruin lives. And my mother had dragged me into it without a second thought. But suspicion wasn't enough anymore. I wanted to see how easily they would lie when given the chance. I picked up my phone and typed slowly, each letter deliberate. "Hey, Mom, I heard from a neighbor that rents have been going up in Tacoma. Did your landlord raise it again?" The 3 dots appeared almost immediately, dancing on the screen. "Yes, honey. He bumped it another $250 this month. It's awful. We're really struggling to keep up." My lips twisted into something halfway between a laugh and a sob. She hadn't hesitated, not even a pause to consider her story. I walked to my kitchen counter where a stack of unopened mail waited. Buried between bills and junk flyers was a copy of Linda's official lease notice. I'd taken it during a visit last month, when she left the envelope lying carelessly on the table. I tore it open again, smoothing the paper flat. The words were clear. Rent increase of $50 per month, effective immediately. 50, not 250. I pressed my palms against the counter, steadying myself as the anger rose sharp and hot. For years I had blamed myself. Maybe I wasn't giving enough. Maybe I should have been more understanding. But this was proof she didn't just accept my help. She manufactured reasons to bleed me dry. The phone buzzed again. "We're already cutting corners, Veronica. Sam's picking up extra hours at school. Ethan's trying to find more work-study shifts. But we can't do this without you. Please." I stared at the message until the words blurred. Then I opened my notes app and copied the lease notice right below her text thread. Cold, undeniable evidence. I didn't reply. Not yet. Let her think I was still the gullible daughter who would fold after a few guilt-soaked pleas. As I slid the letter back into the envelope, a strange calm settled over me. The pieces were falling into place, the recordings, the forged credit card, and now this deliberate lie. They thought they were playing me. What they didn't know was that I had already started playing them. I didn't answer Mom's last text. Instead, I stuffed the lease notice back into my folder and drove downtown after work the next day, the weight of evidence rattling like loose stones in my bag. Michael had agreed to meet again, this time not just for advice, but to help me map it all out. He was already waiting in a quiet conference room at the firm, sleeves rolled up, a legal pad, and his laptop open. "You brought the rent letter?" I slid the envelope across the table. $50. She told me $250. Michael gave a low whistle. "Classic escalation. They assume you won't fact-check." I dropped into the chair opposite him, exhaustion pulling at my bones. I've been paying their bills for years. Rent, tuition, medical expenses. I thought I was saving them. Turns out I've just been funding vacations and spa treatments. He tapped his pen. "Okay, let's build a timeline. We'll match their requests against their spending. It'll show a pattern. One even they can't deny." For the next hour, we worked like auditors preparing for trial. I opened my spreadsheets. He pulled up old bank statements. Together, we began plotting. Dates of wire transfers, amounts withdrawn, the reasons I'd been given. "Look at this," Michael muttered, swiveling his laptop toward me. A charge for a luxury resort in Palm Springs, posted the same week Mom claimed she needed urgent medical tests. I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping me. I canceled a dental appointment that month. I told myself her health mattered more than mine. Michael's pen scratched across the paper. "Here's another. Ethan begged for money in December, said his scholarship was delayed. 2 days later, there's a Best Buy purchase for a gaming console, $800. My stomach twisted. I could still see his text. Sis, please. I don't want to drop out. I had wired the money without hesitation, pride in being the reliable sister outweighing my doubts. And Sam? Michael added, pulling up a screenshot I'd forwarded. Remember when she swore her utility bill was killing her? That was right before she posted beach photos from Cabo. Same weekend. The 3 columns on my spreadsheet, what I paid, why they said, what they really did, were filling fast, each row another nail in the coffin of the story I had clung to. I leaned back, rubbing my temples. It's like every emergency lined up perfectly with their indulgences. Not coincidences, a system. Michael nodded. They've been choreographing this for years, each of them playing a role. One asks, another confirms, the third distracts. It's a family hustle. The words stung, but I couldn't deny the truth. The picture was complete now. Not random acts of need, but a synchronized scheme. For a moment, silence stretched between us. Then Michael spoke softly, but firmly. You've got the evidence, Veronica. It's airtight. The question is, what do you want to do with it? I stared at the columns, the totals glowing on the screen. $87,452. My life, siphoned off in installments. I took a steady breath. I'm going to let them keep lying a little longer, and then I'll show them what truth looks like. The spreadsheet was damning, but Michael was right. Evidence meant nothing if I left myself exposed. If they had already used my name once, what would stop them from trying again? The next morning, I sat across from a bank representative in a glass-walled office downtown. Her name tag read Janice, her smile polite, but her eyes sharpened when I laid out the situation. I need to freeze my credit reports, I said, my voice steady. New cards, new PINs, 2-factor authentication on everything. She nodded, typing quickly. We can start with Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, and it'll block any new accounts under your social security number. I signed the forms, each pen stroke a small act of defiance. When Janice handed me the new debit card, the plastic felt strangely powerful in my palm, like armor. Is there anything else unusual on your accounts? She asked. Her words triggered a memory. Michael pointing out the failed login attempt last December. I told her about it. She scrolled, frowned, and turned her monitor toward me. Yes, there were multiple failed attempts from a Portland IP address. Looks like someone tried to access your savings on Christmas Eve. Of course. Samantha. I laughed bitterly. Merry Christmas to me. Janice's expression softened. You're doing the right thing. These steps will protect you. By the time I left the branch, the sun had dipped low over the Seattle skyline. My phone buzzed with notifications, texts from Mom, Samantha, and Ethan stacking like bricks. We need to talk. Where's the rent payment? Don't do this to us, Veronica. I screenshotted each one, sliding them into my growing archive. Their words didn't cut the way they used to. They read like evidence now, patterns of guilt and demand, not love. That night, I sat at my dining table, the place where I had once balanced their crises against my empty savings account. My folder was thicker now. Lease notices, credit reports, screenshots, fraudulent charges, a case file. I whispered to myself, almost like a vow. No more access. No more loopholes. No more open doors. For the first time in years, I felt the edges of a boundary forming. Not in theory, not in wishful thinking, but in action. And I knew exactly what my next step had to be. The first day of the month had always carried the same ritual. I'd log into my bank, schedule the transfer for $1,450, and breathe through the ache of watching my balance drop. It had become muscle memory, as natural as brushing my teeth. This time, my fingers hovered over the keyboard. The payment form was filled in, every field complete. All it would take was one click. But I didn't move. Instead, I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence of my apartment settle around me. The folder of evidence sat open on the table, lease notices, credit reports, screenshots of their texts. A silent jury staring me down. I whispered into the quiet, "Not this time." And then, for the first time in 5 years, I hit cancel. The relief was immediate, but it wasn't clean. It came tangled with guilt, fear, and a hollow ache where obligation used to live. I closed the laptop and pressed my palms flat against the table, grounding myself. This wasn't abandonment. This was survival. By noon, the fallout began. My phone buzzed with Samantha's name flashing across the screen. I let it ring. A text followed seconds later. "Hey, rent's due today. Did you send it?" Half an hour later, another. "Mom's stressed. Please don't wait. We're counting on you." By evening, Ethan chimed in. "Sis, where's the money? Landlord's already on our backs." Each message grew sharper, the sweetness stripped away. Mom's came last. "How could you do this to your own family? We'll be evicted because of you." I read them all, screenshot every one, and slid them into the growing archive. My heart pounded, but instead of folding, I found myself studying their tone like data points. The pattern was always the same. Start with urgency, escalate to guilt, end in accusation. I didn't reply. That night, lying awake in the dark, my phone lit up again and again, buzzing against the nightstand. I buried it under a pillow, the vibrations muffled but insistent, like a ghost demanding entry. For years, those calls had dictated my choices. Tonight, the silence belonged to me. I turned onto my side, eyes fixed on the faint outline of the folder on my desk. Every unanswered call, every saved message was no longer a chain. It was evidence. And I knew they had just handed me more proof than I could have asked for. The invitation came 2 days after I ignored their frantic messages. A cheery group text from Samantha, filled with emojis and false warmth. "Don't forget, Mom's big 6-0 this weekend. We're throwing a party at the house. Everyone's coming. You have to be there. And please bring that chocolate cake you make. Mom loves it." I almost laughed. After days of accusations and threats, they wanted me to bake dessert. I typed back a simple, "I'll be there," knowing full well I'd already packed my folder of evidence into my bag. Saturday evening, I drove south from Seattle to Tacoma, the freeway lights streaking across my windshield. My heart beat in rhythm with the tires. The house came into view just as the sun bled pink across the horizon. 3 bedrooms, wraparound porch, glowing warmly from the inside. The house my money had kept afloat. Cars lined the curb. Through the front windows, I saw balloons, streamers, the golden 60 taped above the fireplace. Voices rose in laughter. From the outside, it looked like a celebration of love. I parked a block away and sat for a moment in the silence of my car. My reflection stared back in the rearview mirror, chin lifted, eyes steady. Not the ATM they thought they owned. I carried the chocolate cake in one hand and my folder in the other. By the time I reached the porch, Samantha had flung the door open. She threw her arms around me, her perfume sweet and cloying. "You made it. Mom will be so happy." Her grip was tight, almost rehearsed. I noticed the fresh manicure glittering under the porch light. Inside, relatives I hadn't seen in years greeted me with hugs. "Veronica, it's been too long." They didn't know how long it had really been, not in miles or years, but in truth. Linda appeared in the doorway to the kitchen, draped in a silk blouse I knew she couldn't afford on her own income. Her smile was wide, but her eyes scanned me like a ledger. "There's my responsible girl. What would I do without you?" I kissed her cheek, feeling the cashmere of her sweater against my skin. "Happy birthday, Mom." My voice was calm, controlled. The living room buzzed with chatter. Aunts reminisced, cousins swapped stories, neighbors raised glasses. Samantha moved from group to group, her laughter too bright. Ethan leaned against the wall, scrolling his phone, his sneakers brand new. I set the cake down on the buffet table and slipped my folder onto a chair beside me. Its weight was both anchor and weapon. Dinner passed in a blur of toasts and polite conversation. I chewed slowly, my smile fixed, while every detail sharpened in my mind. The wine bottles on the counter, the flicker of candles on the cake, the landlord's letter tucked into my folder waiting for its cue. When the plates were cleared and the room quieted for Linda's big moment, Samantha clinked her glass. "A toast! To Mom, the strongest, kindest woman we know." Applause filled the room. Linda beamed, soaking it in, and then I stood. My chair scraped against the hardwood floor, cutting through the laughter. Dozens of eyes turned toward me. "Before we cut the cake," I said, steadying my breath, "I'd like to say a few words." Linda's smile faltered just a fraction, the kind of crack you'd miss if you weren't looking closely. But I was. I rested a hand on the back of my chair, the folder within reach. 60 years is a milestone, and tonight I want to celebrate not just age, but truth. The room stilled. Somewhere in the kitchen, ice clinked against a glass. Linda's eyes narrowed, and I knew she could feel the ground shifting beneath her feet, and I hadn't even opened the folder yet. Dozens of eyes watched me as I stood, my chair still vibrating from the scrape against the hardwood. The clinking of silverware died down. Even the background music seemed to hush. Linda's smile, polished for guests, froze on her face. "Oh, Veronica," she said lightly, "you didn't have to." "I want to," I cut in gently, my voice calm but firm. "After all, birthdays are for honesty, and there's no better gift than truth." A murmur rippled across the room. My cousins exchanged puzzled glances. Samantha's eyes darted to Mom, then back to me. Ethan finally looked up from his phone, suspicion flickering across his face. I reached for my folder and placed it on the buffet table beside the untouched cake. My fingers lingered on the clasp. "Before we celebrate, I want to thank Mom. For years, she called me her responsible girl." I let the words hang, sharp as glass. And she wasn't wrong. I was responsible for this house, for the bills, for keeping everything afloat. Linda's hand, resting on her wine glass, tightened until her knuckles whitened. "Veronica, darling, maybe this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," I said, lifting my gaze to the crowd. "Because for years, I believed the stories I was told. That rent had gone up, that tuition checks were short, that medical bills were crushing." I opened the folder and pulled out the lease notice, holding it up so the room could see. "Here's the truth. The landlord increased rent by $50. Mom told me $250. Gasps broke the silence. My aunt leaned forward, frowning. "Is that real?" "Straight from the landlord." I laid the paper flat, then pulled out the next sheet, a bank statement. "Here's a credit card, opened in my name using my old Spokane address, maxed out on resorts, spas, and designer clothes. Not mine. Hers." The room stiffened. A cousin whispered to another, "That's illegal." Linda's voice rose, brittle. "That's absurd, I'd never—" But I didn't let her finish. I hit play on my phone. The recording filled the living room with cruel laughter. Samantha's sharp voice, Ethan's drunken mockery, and finally Linda's greedy tone. "She's basically an ATM with a pulse." Every face turned toward them, eyes wide, mouths open. The room no longer belonged to Linda. It belonged to the truth spilling from my phone. Samantha leapt up, her voice shrill. "That was taken out of context." "Really?" I asked. My tone was steady, almost conversational. "Because it sounded pretty clear to me, and to everyone else here." Ethan shoved his chair back, glaring. "You had no right to record us." "No right?" I shot back. "I had no right to protect myself after you bled me dry? After you lied about textbooks while posting photos from Vegas? After you laughed about how easy it was to manipulate me?" The crowd buzzed with whispers, the kind of noise that never comes back under control. My uncle shook his head. An old family friend muttered, "Shameful." Linda stood abruptly, her face pale beneath her makeup. "This is cruel, Veronica. How dare you humiliate your own family in front of everyone?" I met her eyes, my voice low but clear. "Humiliation isn't mine to carry anymore, Mom. It's yours. You built this house on my back, then mocked me for bending under the weight." She trembled, her mouth opening and closing, but no words came. I gathered the papers and stacked them neatly. For 5 years, I paid nearly $88,000. Money I could have used for a home of my own, for medical care I put off, for a future. Instead, I gave it all to people who never saw me as family, only as a bank account. The silence that followed was heavier than any shout. Relatives shifted uncomfortably, some avoiding Linda's gaze, others staring at me with stunned sympathy. Finally, I straightened, slipping the folder under my arm. So here's my birthday gift to you, Mom. Freedom. Freedom from my money, from my silence, from the illusion that I'll always be there to fix your messes. I reached for the cake knife, slid it across the table toward her, and stepped back. Happy 60th. No applause followed, only the suffocating quiet of a room where masks had been torn away. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. My mother stood frozen, the knife I'd slid toward her glinting on the table between us. Then the room erupted. "What the hell is this, Veronica?" Ethan's voice cracked as he shot up from his chair. His jaw was clenched, his eyes bloodshot. "You're ruining Mom's birthday!" "Ruining it?" I shot back. "No, Ethan, I'm exposing the truth. She ruined it herself the day she opened a credit card in my name." Gasps rippled again through the guests. An aunt clutched her husband's arm. A neighbor whispered something sharp, eyes darting toward Linda. Samantha sprang forward, her hand gripping my arm. "You can't just ambush us like this. You don't understand. Mom's been under so much stress." I yanked my arm free. "Don't you dare spin this. I have texts from you, Sam, crying about overdue utilities while you were sipping cocktails in Cabo. Do you want me to put those on the TV too?" Her cheeks flushed crimson. "That's not fair." "Fair?" My voice rose, trembling with years of swallowed hurt. "I skipped root canals so you could fix your car. I canceled vacations so Ethan could cover tuition. I worked 14-hour days while you partied, and all the while you mocked me behind my back." The room pulsed with tension, like a storm pressing against the walls. Linda finally found her voice. "Enough!" She slammed her hand against the table, her wine glass toppling and shattering across the hardwood. "This is my birthday, my house, and you will not humiliate me here." "Your house?" I stepped closer, my folder still clutched to my chest. "I've paid more toward this mortgage than you have. For 5 years, I kept this roof over your head while you treated me like a fool." "You think anyone here believes you?" she hissed. "You're jealous. Jealous that you're alone, with no husband, no children, no life beyond your spreadsheets. That's why you cling to money. It's all you've got." The words sliced, but instead of bleeding, I felt something harden. I straightened, shoulders squared. "You're wrong. What I have now is freedom. And evidence, and a room full of witnesses." Guests shifted uncomfortably. Some avoided Linda's gaze, others shook their heads at her cruelty. Uncle Mark finally broke the silence. "Linda, she's showing us documents. She's got recordings. If even half of this is true—" "Don't you dare take her side!" Linda snapped, her voice shrill. "She's lying. She's twisting everything." But the conviction was gone. Her hands trembled, her face pale beneath the makeup. Ethan kicked a chair, the legs screeching against the floor. "This is all bullshit! You're trying to make us look bad." I met his glare head on. "I don't have to try. You did that yourselves." Samantha began crying, loud, messy sobs that sounded more like performance than pain. "Veronica, please. We're family. You can't cut us off like this." I closed the folder, sliding it under my arm. "Family doesn't use you. Family doesn't laugh while they rob you. I'm done." The room went still again, the kind of silence that falls when truth has scorched the air too completely for anyone to breathe. I turned to the guests, my voice calmer now. "I'm sorry to drag this into your evening, but I won't carry their lies anymore. If you want to know why I've kept my distance, now you do." And with that, I walked toward the door. Behind me, voices rose, Linda shouting, Samantha begging, Ethan cursing. But none of it reached me the way it used to. The night air hit my face as I stepped onto the porch. It was cool, sharp, alive. My heart still hammered, but under the adrenaline, there was relief. Inside, my family's empire of lies was collapsing in front of their own audience, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to save them. The cool Tacoma night clung to my skin as I walked down the porch steps, but the shouts followed me like shadows. "Veronica, wait!" Samantha's heels clattered against the wood. She grabbed my arm at the edge of the driveway, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "Please, don't do this. We can fix it. You know Mom didn't mean to." I turned slowly, her desperation reflected in the porch light. "Didn't mean to? She opened a credit card in my name. She lied about rent. You lied about utilities while you were sipping mojitos in Cabo. That wasn't an accident, Sam. That was a choice." She flinched, but clung tighter. "We're family. Families mess up, but you don't just walk away." "I didn't walk away," I said, my voice low and steady. "For 5 years I stayed, I paid, I sacrificed, and you laughed about how easy it was to use me. That's not family, that's exploitation." Ethan stumbled out next, his voice sharp with anger. "So what? You're just cutting us off? After everything we've been through?" I met his glare. "No, Ethan. I'm cutting myself free." "There's a difference." Linda appeared in the doorway, her figure framed by balloons and streamers, her voice breaking through the night. "Veronica, you'll regret this. You think these people here tonight will take care of you? You'll end up alone." Her words might once have gutted me. Tonight they rolled off like rain on glass. I stepped closer so she could see the steel in my eyes. "I'd rather be alone than used. And don't mistake my silence for weakness ever again. My boundaries aren't negotiable." For a moment, the three of them just stared. Sam crying, Ethan scowling, Linda's face pale with fury. I adjusted the folder under my arm, feeling its weight like armor. "From now on, you have no access to my money, my accounts, or my life. Whatever messes you make, you'll have to clean up yourselves." The porch light flickered, casting shadows across their stunned faces. I took a step back, then another. "This isn't me abandoning you," I finished. "This is me choosing me." And with that, I turned, walked to my car, and shut the door. Their voices blurred into muffled noise as the engine roared to life. For the first time in years, the boundary wasn't just in my head, it was real, and it was mine. The drive back to Seattle felt different this time. The night air through my cracked window wasn't heavy anymore. It was sharp, clean, almost celebratory. I had finally drawn the line. But boundaries don't erase consequences. They invite them. 3 weeks later, I heard the first whispers. A cousin messaged me on Facebook, her words tinged with scandalous curiosity. "Did you know your mom's house is on the market?" I didn't reply, but I clicked the link she sent. There it was, Linda's beloved 3-bedroom home in Tacoma listed on Zillow, priced for quick sale. The photos made me wince, the staged furniture, the fake fruit on the counter, a home stripped for strangers to tour. I imagined her scrolling through the comments at night, furious at the offers, blaming me with every breath. The fallout spread quickly. Samantha's glossy Instagram feed went dark. Then, weeks later, it reappeared, but the cocktails and designer handbags had been replaced with something else. A red vest and name tag, her smile stiff behind a grocery store register. One evening, I stood in line at a Safeway and froze when I recognized her 2 lanes over. She caught my eye for a split second, panic flashing across her face before she ducked her head and rang up a customer's groceries. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I simply paid for my milk and left. Ethan was harder to ignore. A mutual friend texted me. "Saw your brother working construction downtown. He looks rough." I pictured him, muscles straining, sweat streaking his shirt, not for a game or a photo op, but because the bills he once shoved onto my shoulders were now his to carry. I wasn't happy about their struggles, but I wasn't sad either. It was reality finally catching up. Mom tried the longest to hold out. She called once, her voice honeyed and cracked at the edges. "Veronica, you've made your point. Enough is enough. We're family. We can work this out." I let her words hang in the voicemail, then pressed delete. Michael noticed the change in me first. Over coffee at the firm, he tilted his head. "You don't look haunted anymore." "I'm not," I said, stirring sugar into my cup. "For years I carried their lives on my back. Now they're carrying their own. That's not cruelty. It's justice." He smiled faintly. "Feels lighter, doesn't it?" "Lighter," I agreed, "and heavier in the right ways. Heavier with my own choices. My own life." That night, I sat at my dining table, once buried in overdue bills and frantic texts. Now it held only a vase of tulips and the beginnings of a new budget, money for travel, savings, maybe even a home of my own someday. Their consequences weren't my burden anymore. And for the first time in years, I finally believed that was okay. Spring in Seattle carried a different scent that year. Cleaner somehow, sharper with possibility. A year had passed since the birthday party that detonated the lies my family built around me. The consequences had unfolded like dominoes, but they were no longer mine to arrange or pick up. This morning, I wasn't rushing to wire money or scramble for rent payments. Instead, I sat at a cafe window, sipping coffee slowly, savoring it as the rain traced lines down the glass. Across the table, Michael smirked at me over his laptop. "You realize," he said, "this is the first budget spreadsheet I've seen from you where every column is about your goals, not someone else's crises." I laughed softly, the sound strange but welcome. "Feels almost selfish." "It's not selfish," he countered. "It's overdue." He was right. My spreadsheet no longer tracked fabricated emergencies. It tracked savings for a down payment, vacation plans to the Oregon coast, a fund I'd started for continuing education. Numbers that built a future, not patched holes in someone else's. Later that week, I drove to a small townhouse north of Green Lake. It wasn't grand, nothing like the Tacoma house I'd funded, but it was mine. The realtor placed the keys in my hand, and for a moment I just stood there in the empty living room, listening to the echo of my own footsteps. I whispered, "Welcome home," as if the walls had been waiting for me. The change wasn't just in bricks and budgets. At work, I finally accepted the promotion I'd turned down twice because I was too busy helping family. As senior portfolio manager, I now mentored younger analysts. One afternoon, a woman barely out of grad school lingered after a meeting. "My brother keeps asking for help with bills," she admitted, eyes shadowed with exhaustion. "I don't know how to say no without feeling like a terrible person." I handed her a blank page. "Start here. 2 columns. What you give and what it costs you. Then add a third, what you're saving for yourself. That last one, don't let anyone erase it." Her shoulders eased, gratitude softening her face. In that moment, I realized my pain had become someone else's roadmap. Friendship, too, filled spaces my family once monopolized. Eleanor hosted Sunday dinners, where laughter came without strings attached. Michael dragged me to trivia nights where, for once, I let myself lose without caring. Even quiet evenings in my townhouse felt different, peaceful instead of lonely. Of course, the ghosts still tried to reach me, emails from Samantha promising apologies if I'd just help one last time. A message through a cousin from Ethan about missing his sister. Even a handwritten letter from Linda, her script still elegant, but her words dripping with blame. I didn't rage or cry anymore. I set boundaries the way some people set alarms, firm, routine, non-negotiable. Their chaos could knock on my door, but it never crossed the threshold. One evening, as I unpacked a box of old belongings, I found a photo from college. Me, younger, smiling with wide-eyed hope, holding my first paycheck. I traced the edges, whispering to that girl, "You deserved better, and now you have it." The rain eased outside, the last drops sliding down the window. I closed the blinds, turned on the soft glow of my living room lamp, and felt something settle in my chest. Not just relief, renewal. This wasn't survival anymore. This was living, and the journey was finally mine. The townhouse was quiet that Saturday morning, sunlight spilling across the hardwood like liquid gold. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, brewing coffee, the simple rhythm of a normal life finally mine. No buzzing phone demanding rent money. No guilt-laced messages about overdue bills. Just the scent of coffee, the crackle of the toaster, and the sound of rain softening against the windows. For a moment, I leaned against the counter, just listening to the silence. It wasn't empty anymore. It was peaceful. Later, Michael and Eleanor arrived, arms full of groceries and laughter. We cooked together, chopping vegetables, clinking glasses, music humming in the background. My dining table, once covered with overdue bills and forged credit card statements, now held fresh tulips and mismatched plates. Eleanor raised a glass. "To freedom," she said with a grin. Michael added, "And to not letting anyone write your story but you." We laughed, but I felt my throat tighten. This was family. Not bound by blood, but by choice, by respect, by love that didn't come with a price tag. In the afternoon, I walked along Green Lake, the air crisp, cherry blossoms scattering like confetti across the water. Families picnicked, couples strolled, runners passed by. I didn't feel out of place anymore. For the first time, I belonged to my own life. As I looped the trail, I spotted a familiar figure on a nearby bench. Samantha. Her Safeway vest folded beside her, hair pulled back, face pale with exhaustion. She looked up, recognition flashing in her eyes. For a moment, I felt the old tug, the instinct to fix, to rescue. But I kept walking, not out of cruelty, but clarity. Her life was hers to carry now, just as mine was mine. By evening, I sat on my balcony with a journal in my lap, the Seattle skyline glowing against the dusk. I traced the leather cover with my fingers, then began to write. Not about debts or betrayal, but about dreams. The trips I wanted to take, the classes I wanted to enroll in, the life I wanted to build. I closed the journal, letting the cool air wash over me. The city felt different now. Not heavier with obligations, but brighter with possibility. This was my rebirth, and I wasn't afraid anymore. If there's one lesson I've carried from this journey, it's that love without respect is just control, and sacrifice without choice is slavery. For years, I believed family meant giving until it hurt, that my worth was measured by how much I could hand over. But the truth is simple. Family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by how people treat you. Saying no doesn't make you heartless. It makes you whole. Boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're filters to protect the love and energy you deserve to keep. And sometimes, the most powerful act of love is the one you give yourself, the permission to walk away from what destroys you. Today, I stand lighter, freer, and stronger, not because my family changed, but because I did. And if you're listening to this, maybe it's time you asked yourself, where are you giving too much? And what would it look like to finally give to yourself? If my story resonates with you, I invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who needs the reminder, and leave a comment about your own journey. Your voice matters. Let's build a community where choosing yourself is celebrated, not shamed.